Have you ever stopped to wonder what truly happens to your body during the quiet hours of the night? We spend one-third of our lives sleeping, viewing it as a sanctuary, a time for the body to heal, repair, and rest from the weary demands of the day. But for many seniors, the silence of the night can mask a deadly predator. There is a startling statistic that keeps many doctors awake at night. Nearly 20% of all strokes occur while the victim is asleep. In the medical world, this is known as a wake-up stroke, and it is one of the most dangerous medical emergencies a person can face. The true danger of a wake-up stroke does not lie in the severity of the blockage itself, but in the timing. When a stroke happens during the day, perhaps while you are having lunch with a friend or watching television, the signs are usually visible. You might drop a fork, your speech might slur, or your face might droop. People around you notice. They ask if you are okay. They call for help. But at night, you are isolated in the dark. You are alone with your symptoms. And because you are asleep, you miss the crucial initial warning signs that could have alerted you hours earlier. And when you finally do wake up in the middle of the night feeling strange, feeling off, what is the very first thing you do? Human psychology suggests that we try to rationalize away our pain. We tell ourselves comforting lies. We think, I must have slept in an awkward position, or I am just exhausted, or maybe that dinner I ate was too heavy. We look at the clock, see it is 3 a.m., and the last thing we want to do is wake up our spouse or call an ambulance and cause a scene. We fear being a burden. We fear the hospital. So we make a choice. We turn over, adjust the pillow, and try to force ourselves back to sleep, hoping it will all be better in the morning. Tragically, for thousands of seniors every single year, that decision to go back to sleep is the last decision they ever make. By choosing sleep over action, they miss the golden window for treatment, those precious few hours where doctors can administer clot-busting drugs to reverse the damage and save the brain. In this video, we are going to walk together through 7 silent, subtle signs of a nighttime stroke that most elderly people completely ignore. These are not always the dramatic, heart-clutching moments you see in Hollywood movies. Often, they are quiet whispers from a body in distress. But understanding these signs could be the difference between waking up to a normal breakfast or facing a life-altering disability. Please, I urge you to stay with me until the very end of this video. Sign number 7 is one of the most bizarre and frequently overlooked symptoms. It is something so common that most people mistake it for a simple digestive issue. Yet recognizing it tonight could save your life or the life of the person sleeping next to you. Let's begin this journey of understanding. Sign number 1. Sudden numbness or dead weight in the arm or leg on one side. We have all experienced the sensation of waking up with a dead arm. It is a universal human experience. You fall asleep with your arm tucked under your head or your partner rolls onto it, cutting off the circulation. When you wake up, the limb feels heavy, followed by an intense sensation of pins and needles as the blood rushes back. You shake it out, it tingles, it hurts a little, and then it returns to normal. Because this is so common, we are conditioned to ignore numbness. However, a stroke signal is fundamentally different, and knowing this distinction is critical for your survival. Numbness caused by a stroke typically happens without that prickly pins and needles sensation. It is not a sensation of blood returning. It is a sensation of signal loss. It feels like a void. It is a profound sudden weakness or complete paralysis on just one side of the body that greets you the moment you wake up. Let's look at the story of Frank to understand this better. Frank was a 74-year-old retired history teacher, a man who prided himself on his independence and his daily walks. One Tuesday night, Frank woke up at 2 a.m. with a strong urge to use the bathroom. As he tried to push himself up from the mattress, he realized his right arm wouldn't cooperate. It didn't hurt. It just felt incredibly heavy, like a bag of wet sand attached to his shoulder. He tried to grip the edge of the bed sheet, but his fingers remained limp. In his groggy, half-asleep state, Frank's brain tried to find a logical explanation. He thought, I must have slept on it funny. It will wake up in a few minutes. He didn't want to wake his wife, Martha, who had trouble sleeping. So, he struggled out of bed using only his left arm, dragged himself to the bathroom, and then returned to bed. He lay there in the dark, massaging his numb right arm, waiting for the tingling to start. It never did. Eventually, he drifted back into a fitful sleep. When Martha tried to wake him the next morning at 7 a.m. for coffee, Frank couldn't speak clearly. The entire right side of his body was paralyzed, and his face was drooping significantly. By the time they arrived at the emergency room, 5 hours had passed since he first woke up. The doctors told Martha that if Frank had come in at 2 a.m., they might have been able to reverse the paralysis. But now, the damage was permanent. Frank spent the rest of his years in a wheelchair, not because the stroke was untreatable, but because he misunderstood the signal. Here is the lesson. If you wake up and an arm or leg feels weak, do not assume it is just circulation. Perform a simple test in the dark. Try to lift both arms up in front of you. If one arm drifts down uncontrollably, or you cannot lift it at all, or if you pinch your skin and feel nothing, do not go back to sleep. Wake your partner. Call emergency services immediately. Sign number 2. A sudden, thunderclap headache. As we age, we get used to aches and pains. It becomes part of our daily reality. Headaches can come from tension, from changes in the barometric pressure, from not drinking enough water, or even from a stiff neck. Most of us have a bottle of pain relief pills on our nightstand for this very reason. But a stroke-related headache is unlike anything you have likely experienced before. Doctors vividly call it a thunderclap headache because of how it arrives. It doesn't build up slowly like a tension headache. It strikes instantly, reaching its maximum intensity within seconds, appearing out of nowhere like a clap of thunder in a clear sky. If you are jolted out of a deep sleep by a pain in your head that feels blinding, intense, and fundamentally wrong, this is a massive red flag. Consider the experience of Martha, a 68-year-old grandmother who loved gardening. Martha suffered from occasional migraines her whole life, so she considered herself an expert on headaches. But one night in November, she woke up clutching her head, gasping for air. She later described it as feeling like someone had hit her with a baseball bat at the base of her skull. The pain was instant and excruciating. Her first instinct, conditioned by years of migraines, was to reach for her medication. She thought, I just need to take a pill, put a cold cloth on my forehead, and sleep it off. She didn't want to make a fuss or go to the hospital for just a headache. She lay back down, squeezing her eyes shut, trying to breathe through the agony. Fortunately, her husband, Bill, was a light sleeper. He noticed Martha's erratic breathing and the way she was curling into a ball. When he turned on the bedside lamp, he saw she was pale, sweating profusely, and unable to open her eyes against the light. Despite her protests that she just wanted to sleep, Bill insisted on calling 911. That decision saved her life. Martha was not having a migraine. She was suffering from a subarachnoid hemorrhage, a bleeding vessel in the brain. If she had fallen back asleep under the influence of a painkiller, the pressure in her brain would have increased to a fatal level. She would have slipped into a coma from which she would never have woken. The takeaway is simple but vital. A normal headache knocks at the door. A dangerous headache kicks the door down. If you wake up to the worst headache of your life, treat it as a life or death emergency, not an inconvenience. Sign number 3. Severe dizziness or vertigo when sitting up. Many seniors wake up once or twice a night to use the restroom. It is a routine part of aging that we all accept. But pay close attention to how you feel in that transition from horizontal to vertical. When you sit up and put your feet on the floor, how does the world look? If the room starts spinning violently, or you feel like you are on a boat in a storm, or the floor feels like it is tilting beneath you, do not ignore it. We often blame dizziness on standing up too fast, which causes a drop in blood pressure. This is called orthostatic hypotension. But stroke-related dizziness is more severe and often comes with other symptoms. This type of dizziness suggests a problem in the cerebellum or the brain stem, the parts of the brain that control balance and coordination. Let's look at Robert, a 76-year-old man. He woke up at 4 a.m., swung his legs over the side of the bed, and stood up. Immediately, he collapsed to the floor. He didn't trip over anything. His legs just gave way, and the room spun so fast he couldn't tell up from down. He wasn't in pain, but he was completely disoriented. Lying on the carpet, Robert felt embarrassed. He thought, I'm just getting old and clumsy. Or maybe I need to drink more water. He felt ashamed to wake his wife by telling her he had fallen. So he crawled back into bed, gripping the sheets until the spinning stopped, and eventually drifted off. Robert didn't realize that a blood vessel supplying his balance center was blocked. By morning, the damage had spread, affecting his ability to walk permanently. That fall was not clumsiness. It was a neurological failure. If you wake up dizzy, sit on the edge of the bed for a minute. If the spinning doesn't stop, or if you try to walk and find yourself veering to one side like you are intoxicated, do not go back to bed. Wake someone up. Ask them to help you check for other signs. Before we move forward to sign number 4, which is a very common vision issue that 90% of seniors mistake for simple aging, I want to pause for a brief moment to speak directly to you. We often spend hours planning our finances for retirement or planning trips to see the grandchildren, but we rarely spend time planning for the silent threats inside our own bodies. This information about nighttime strokes is vital, yet so few families talk about it until it is too late. If you are still watching this video and finding these insights helpful, please take just 1 second to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps the algorithm show this video to more seniors, which could potentially save a life. And if you are ready to continue learning how to protect yourself, please comment the number for below to let me know you are here with me. I read every comment, and it means the world to know we are in this together. Thank you for your support. Now, let's look at what your eyes might be telling you. Sign number 4. Sudden vision loss or blurriness in one eye. Navigating the dark is difficult for everyone. When you wake up at night, it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust to the shadows. However, a stroke often presents as a specific type of vision loss that is distinct from just bad eyesight or needing new glasses. It can feel like a sudden curtain or a gray shade has been pulled down over just one eye. Or you might suddenly see double, seeing 2 alarm clocks instead of 1, even after you turn on the light. Take the story of Sarah, who is 71. Sarah wore glasses for reading, but her distance vision was generally fine. One night, she woke up for a glass of water. As she walked to the kitchen, she realized she kept bumping into the doorframe on her left side. She stopped and covered her right eye. She realized she couldn't see anything out of her left eye. It was pitch black, as if the light in the hallway wasn't working. But when she uncovered her right eye, she could see clearly. She blinked rapidly, rubbed her eye, thinking there was sleep or mucus blocking her vision. When it didn't clear, she rationalized it again. She told herself, "My eyes are just tired from knitting all day," and decided she would call her optometrist in the morning to change her prescription. She went back to sleep. Sarah didn't know she was experiencing a retinal artery occlusion, often called an eye stroke. This can be a precursor or a companion to a major brain stroke. A blood clot had blocked the artery to her retina. Because she waited until morning, the vision loss in that eye became permanent. Do not wait for the morning light. If your vision changes suddenly, cover one eye, then the other. If one side is dark, blurred, or gray while the other is clear, this is a medical emergency. Your eyes are direct extensions of your brain. When they go dark, your brain is in trouble. Sign number 5. Slurred speech or confusion upon waking. This sign is notoriously difficult to detect because, at night, we are usually silent. We don't wake up giving speeches or having long conversations. But sometimes, a stroke can leave you unable to communicate, even if your mind feels relatively clear. If you wake your partner because you feel unwell, pay close attention to how you are speaking. Or, if your partner wakes you up and they sound strange, do not dismiss it as sleep talking. Consider Thomas, a 79-year-old man. He woke up at 3 a.m. feeling anxious and restless. He nudged his wife, Helen, to tell her that he felt strange and dizzy. Helen woke up and asked him what was wrong. Thomas knew exactly what he wanted to say. "I feel dizzy and my arm hurts." But when he opened his mouth, the words came out as garbled, nonsensical noises. It sounded like he was speaking a foreign language or mumbling with a mouthful of cotton. Thomas felt frustrated and panicked because he could hear the words clearly in his inner monologue, but his mouth wouldn't form them. Helen, initially groggy, might have told him to go back to sleep, "You're dreaming." But she noticed the fear in his eyes. She sat up and asked him to repeat himself. When he couldn't, she recognized it as aphasia, a classic stroke symptom where the language centers of the brain are compromised. She called emergency services right away. Her quick thinking and refusal to ignore his garbled speech saved Thomas from permanent brain damage. If you ever feel like your tongue is thick, or you cannot form a simple sentence, or if you cannot understand what your spouse is saying to you, assume it is a stroke. Sign number 6. Unexplained nausea and vomiting. Nausea is a common symptom for many minor ailments, indigestion, food poisoning, or even a stomach virus. But usually, these come with other signs like a stomach ache, diarrhea, or a fever, and they can often be traced back to a meal you ate. However, vomiting that wakes you from a deep sleep, without any prior stomach pain or bad food, is a serious warning sign. This is especially true if the nausea comes on suddenly and violently, often described as projectile vomiting. Increased pressure in the brain from a hemorrhage or a large blockage can trigger the vomiting center in the brainstem. Think about Linda, 73 years old. She had a light dinner of soup and toast and went to bed feeling fine. At 1 a.m., she woke up and immediately threw up. There was no warning. She cleaned herself up, assuming she had caught a stomach bug from her grandchildren. She drank some ginger ale and lay back down. But along with the sickness, she felt unusually drowsy. She felt like she was being pulled into a deep, heavy, magnetic sleep that she couldn't fight. That drowsiness was not fatigue. It was her level of consciousness dropping due to a neurological crisis. If you wake up vomiting for no reason, check for other signs. Do you have a headache? Are you dizzy? Is one side of your body weak? Do not just assume it is the stomach flu. Your gut and your brain are connected, and sometimes your stomach is the first to sound the alarm for a brain injury. Sign number 7. Persistent hiccups combined with chest pain or numbness. This is the strange sign I promised to tell you about, and it is the one that surprises people the most. We all get hiccups. Usually, they are annoying but harmless, caused by eating too fast or swallowing air. They typically go away after a few minutes or a glass of water. But in the elderly, and statistically more often in women, sudden, painful hiccups that start in the middle of the night and simply will not stop can be a sign of a stroke in the brainstem. This type of stroke affects the breathing centers that control the diaphragm and the vagus nerve. Nancy, an 80-year-old woman, started hiccuping uncontrollably at midnight. It wasn't the funny kind of hiccups. They were painful, shaking her whole chest. She tried holding her breath, drinking water upside down, and eating sugar. Nothing worked. The hiccups continued for 45 minutes. Along with the hiccups, she felt a slight tightness in her chest and a tingling sensation in her face. She thought the chest pain was just from the strain of hiccuping. She told her husband, "I'm just going to try to sleep through it." By morning, her condition had deteriorated significantly, and she had lost the ability to swallow. Never ignore a body signal that feels persistent and wrong, even something as small as a hiccup. If you have hiccups that last for more than a few minutes combined with numbness, face pain, chest pressure, or vision trouble, it is not a digestive quirk. It is a medical emergency. Final thoughts. Reaching our 60s and 70s is a blessing. It is a time to enjoy the fruits of our labor, our families, and our hard-earned wisdom. But it is also a time when our bodies become more fragile and the margin for error becomes smaller. These 7 signs, numbness, thunderclap headaches, dizziness, sudden vision loss, slurred speech, unexplained nausea, and persistent hiccups, are your body's way of whispering to you in the dark. The tragedy is that so many of us choose to ignore the whisper because we don't want to be a burden, or we are afraid of hospitals, or we simply want to get a good night's sleep. But please, remember the acronym FASDF is for face. Does one side of the face droop? A is for arm. Does one arm drift downward? S is for speech. Is speech slurred or strange? T is for time. If you observe any of these signs, it is time to call emergency services immediately. Do not worry about being wrong. Do not worry about waking up the doctors or the cost of the ambulance. It is always better to go to the hospital and be told it was just a false alarm than to stay home and be too late. Your life is precious, and your family needs you around for many more years. Thank you for spending your time with us today. I hope this video has given you the knowledge you need to sleep a little more soundly tonight. If you learned something new, please like this video and share it with your friends and family. You might just save a life. Stay safe, listen to your body, and I will see you in the next video.